Hey everyone, Annie here, one half of Theater Buddies. So 80s nostalgia is everywhere at the moment, from Stranger Things to the recent release of Spielberg's Ready Player One. To celebrate all of this nostalgia, I was originally going to make a list of my favorite 80s movies, but then I figured, obviously everyone knows I love Back to the Future and Goonies because everyone else loves those movies too. So I figured we'd mix it up a little and talk about some 80s movies you maybe haven't seen before. Now, not all of these movies are what I would call great movies, because for a lot of 80s movies, that's not what it's about. Some are campy or cheesy or weird, but in the end, they're a ton of fun and totally worth watching. That being said, let's start the list. Big Trouble in Little China is Kurt Russell in all of his shining action-packed glory. Wikipedia categorizes this film as a fantasy martial arts comedy. And if that doesn't sound appealing to you, I don't trust you. Basically, the plot is Kurt Russell is a trucker who ends up in San Francisco's Chinatown and befriends a racially and sensitively dressed Kim Cattrall and battles ancient Chinese sorcerers. Oh, and did I mention it was directed by John Carpenter? When you hear Carpenter and Kurt Russell, you probably think Escape from New York or Escape from LA, where Russell played his famous Snake Plissken character. But if you ask me, Big Trouble is just as solid of a collaboration. This movie is weird as hell and tons of fun. Definitely worth a watch.
Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive.
I want to preface this recommendation by saying this is not a good movie, but I enjoy it so much. Maximum Overdrive is one of my and my family's guilty pleasure movies that we watch every year. Maximum Overdrive is Stephen King, yes, the author's, first and only directorial effort, and you can see why. The movie is a mess, and it's often on lists of some of the worst Stephen King adaptations of all time. But listen, this movie is so much fun. The premise is that machines start coming to life and are terrorizing humans. The primary villain is a demon-faced semi-truck that bands together with other semi-trucks to trap Emilio Estevez and a motley crew of survivors in a truck stop diner. This movie is 80s camp at its best, at times being reminiscent of some of the best 1950s B-movie horror flicks. Like I said, the movie is a total disaster, but can any movie with a soundtrack of entirely AC/DC songs really be all that bad? So don't look down.
Moonstruck.
I'm not really one for chick flicks. I'll admit that I love The Notebook, but I stay far, far away from most rom-coms. Moonstruck is an exception to that rule for me. It's funny, romantic, and most importantly, it's quirky, which sets it apart from most movies in its genre. Moonstruck stars Cher and her huge hair. Oh, and also a very young and wonderfully weird Nicolas Cage. This really was Nicolas Cage in his prime, as he plays a one-handed baker who steals Cher away from his own brother. The performances are really what carries the movie. Cher won an Oscar for her role, and so did Olympia Dukakis, who plays Cher's mom in the movie. This is a chick flick that won the Best Picture Oscar. You gotta give them some credit for that. If you're a fan of anime, you've seen Akira. But if you're not, you need to check out this landmark animated film. It's been credited with bringing anime to the Western world. The film takes place in a crime-ridden futuristic Tokyo, where a member of a biker gang is turned into an insane psychic. His friends end up having to race to save him and the city. This is a rated R animated film, and it is intense. I'm not a huge anime fan. I grew up loving Studio Ghibli movies, but I'm not a major follower of the genre. But when I first saw Akira, I was seriously impressed. The visuals are great, the story is interesting, and the world building is truly excellent. Now I'll leave you with that, and save the great debate of watching anime dubbed or subbed for another day.
It's way beyond Grease. Hairspray.
Did you know that Hairspray is a movie based on a musical based on a movie? Way too many people forget about John Waters' original 1988 version of Hairspray. John Waters is known as a cult director, particularly for his 70s black comedy Pink Flamingos. Hairspray is surprisingly mainstream compared to his other work, yet it still maintains his signature campy vibe. Sure, we all have a good time with the Zac Efron and Amanda Bynes version, but there's something more genuine about Waters' original. Waters is a native of Baltimore, and you can tell he really, truly cares about the themes of racial segregation in a struggling Baltimore in the movie. And honestly, famous drag queen Divine is way less creepy as Edna Turnblad than John Travolta, and that alone makes the movie worth it.
The Burbs. It's one hell of a neighborhood.
Hey, honey, I think we should move.
And here we are in my favorite movie on this list, The Burbs. Tom Hanks is everyone's favorite actor, starring in some of the best movies in the last 20 years. Now, The Burbs ain't no Saving Private Ryan, but it captures the 80s vibe we all love so well, and it honestly has a super fun story. This horror black comedy is about an uptight Tom Hanks and his unique neighbors investigating a possibly murderous family in their suburb. This movie is insanely quotable, and the cast is honestly amazing. Carrie Fisher, Bruce Dern, and the ultimate 80s star Corey Feldman support Hanks' hilarious performance. This movie is mysterious, a little creepy, and super funny. The movie knows what it is and executes it perfectly. Do yourself a favor and watch The Burbs ASAP. And there we are, my top 80s flicks you maybe haven't seen. So time to throw on some leg warmers and shoulder pads and dive into your mom's favorite decade. See you soon in the Oasis.